From Cali to Tally, it's time to wake up. WarChant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source, and this is Wake Up War Chant. Now here's WarChant.com's Aslan Hudjavandi and Corey Clark.
Wake up! Why are you energized, Aslan? Well, I'm just getting used to things around here. I'm Aslan, he's Corey. It's Wake Up War Chant. Thanks for being here, folks. Lots to talk about. The Monday shows usually draw pretty high numbers, Corey. Everybody wants to know what's going on. What do you think? So, before that, how are you?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good. How are you doing? You doing all right? You got back home okay?
Yeah, that wasn't fun. I'm kind of glad I don't have to do another roadie. I'll be jet setting this week, going on a jet airplane up to South Bend, Chicago, but then to South Bend.
You might see some snow, it sounds like. You're definitely going to see some really cold weather.
I think I'm going to dodge the snow. Ira might see it. Ira's going to roll up there for a few extra days, decompress. You know, the big guy's got to do big guy things with the fam. But right. I think I'll be out of there by the time the snow gets in, hopefully. I saw enough snow in my lifetime. That year and a half I was in Montana. I don't need to see it anymore. But I know the kids like it, so hopefully his daughters get to frolic in some of the snow.
It'd be cool to cover a game, though, where Florida State was playing in the snow.
Yeah. Was there some flurries in 93?
No, it was like in the 50s. It was just really windy.
Okay, I remember it was something blustery about it.
They thought they got a break because it was kind of sunny, it was overcast, and it was in the 50s, but the wind was like really like 20, 25 miles an hour. So when they had the ball going one way, they couldn't throw it.
That's right. Oh, speaking of which, I need to start unveiling. We'll probably do it tomorrow. I'll do it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'll break it down to a three-part sort of story. Just the greatest story ever told. My trip to Notre Dame back in 2003 with me and like 8 of my buddies.
Okay, good.
Well, I got to make sure I have my ducks in a row on that story, so I need to make sure I don't, put anybody in a bad light.
I feel like the statute of limitations is up, right? That was 15 years ago.
It was, brother. And the crazy thing was, I remember after we left that, we were looking at future schedules, and I think at that point, believe it or not, I think Florida State was actually scheduled to play Texas A&M in 2010, maybe. Anyhow, we were like, we'll do that. And then when this game got announced, I was like, guys, it's going to be the 15-year anniversary. We got to go. And everybody's like, I'm in. But then everybody started getting married, and then Florida State started losing games and doing so in historic fashion. 47-28, the most recent addition to the list. I don't know, like what are 2 or 3 things, Corey, that we should talk about on the show today in regards to that game and this team moving forward, do you think? I think one obviously is probably Walt calling plays. That was kind of interesting.
Sure. It's odd. I wrote about I thought Blackman looked good. I mean, not just the numbers. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves, but I just thought he had a nice command. He got rid of the ball pretty quickly until the end. He took some sacks there at the end, but I mean, it's the offensive line is what it is. But as I wrote about after the game about him and how obviously I think he should be the quarterback the rest of the way, just to see what you've got in the kid. Because again, we're pointing towards 19 at this point. It's hard to write anything positive. Like even though he played well, and Tamorrion Terry is a legitimate freak.
Oh my gosh,
he's just great. He's just a great football. He's just a great talent. And I think what gets lost with Tamorrion Terry is, you brought it up, I didn't realize this, he's on the kick return unit as one of the up backs. I know he's on every punt cover team. He's a gunner. And this is a guy that I can't envision a scenario where he's not a first-round pick, as long as he's eligible and healthy to be drafted. I mean, I just can't imagine a scenario where he's not a first-round pick. And he's out there on punt coverage team, which you might say maybe that's not the best use of that dude, but whatever. That's not the point. The point is that he's somebody that Florida State fans should be excited about. And I think there was some excitement about the way the offense looked at times on Saturday, but it's still just an utter debacle. It's again, you have to, anytime you want to say something positive about what you see with this team, you have to qualify it in the context of, man, this is as bad as it's ever been. I mean, they just gave up 106 points in back-to-back weeks. That's the most any Florida State team has ever given up in history. And there were a lot of down years in Florida State football. And this is the worst we've ever seen. And so you look at it through that lens, And so, yeah, okay, Walt Bell called plays. It looked better, sure. Willie Taggart said he wanted to concentrate more on the football team and make sure the sideline was more energetic, and it was. Did it matter? No. I mean, I guess when you're trying to build a culture and a program, that every little bit is important, but it didn't translate to anything on the field. The defense was atrocious. The special teams, they might as well just not practice. If they're devoting any amount of practice time to this, they might as well stop and devote it to like maybe teaching a defensive back how to turn around and play the ball. Because devoting even a second to special teams at this point is just useless time because it's not getting through. It's an abomination. So all that being said, I think Florida State fans moving forward are like, okay, well, James Blackman might be a nice little quarterback here. Who knows? But you can't talk about him glowingly and just ignore what continues to happen. 31 penalties in 2 weeks is a joke. They're just not well coached. You have to call a timeout to punt. So again, like we said last week, it's not that Willie was left a great roster in this wonderful locker room and immediately melted it into lava. He didn't do that. But has he put out the fire at all? Has he taken an extinguisher to it at all? Or has he just poured more gasoline on it? Again, I think that's what fans are genuinely and legitimately concerned about.
We're going to do a show for probably like another 30 minutes or so, but that's pretty much it, everybody. I mean, that's it. That's what's going on right now. That's what's going on. It is the offense did look a little bit better. Let's start there. We'll work our way to the defense. We'll start strong. We'll end the week or whatever.
Yep.
I mean, it's encouraging, right? I think there were so many knocks, obviously, on Jimbo. One of them being just absolute, stubbornness or pride or ego, whatever you want to have, that he would never let go of play calling duties. Although I think there was some hubbub that maybe Randy Sanders had his finger on a couple plays at a couple vital moments of seasons.
Yeah, he did. I think in 16 maybe or 15, one of those years, I think Randy called some of the plays. Yeah. Not much. I mean, it was Jimbo's baby, but I did think he let him maybe take a drive or two.
I'm going to be the guy. I'm going to go out of character. I'm going to be sincere. I don't think people can maybe criticize Willie for, oh, wow, like you wanted to call plays and then now you're giving it away. I think of it as a positive sign. I think it's I don't want to say encouraging because I keep using that word, but to see him step back and just look at solutions. I mean, at this point, again, it's hard to keep saying, let's look at this team week to week and see if there's growth because the level of competition is different, and ultimately how you finish in November is not going to pertain to how you're going to perform in September 2019. So I just want to see pieces. I want to see this team do things that just make you believe that if they can piece it all together at some point down the line with this staff, this will be a good product. I think it's a good sign that he's willing to step back and be like, okay, I will take my hands off of this. I will let you, Walt Bell, a guy who is able to do this. You've done this before. I'll let you call the plays. I'll step back. I mean, the offense did look better, and not necessarily. I don't want to say it's because of Walt, but isn't that something that positive? I mean, the offense did look better than at any point they've looked the previous 9 weeks.
Yeah, but you wonder how much of that was the play calling and how much of that was the guy getting the shotgun snaps. Okay. I don't know that you can put a finger on one and say it was definitely because of Walt Bell or it was because of James Blackman. It might have been a combination of both. But I do think that's encouraging that he was willing to make a change because he seemed pretty adamant in August. No, I call the plays.
Yeah.
Well, again, it's at least. I mean, I'll use the word encouraging. I mean, we're trying to look for anything we can that he's able to look in the mirror and think, okay, well, this isn't working. Whatever I'm doing, I'm not doing it well, and I need to get some new eyes. I hired this guy to be an offensive coordinator. I need to see if he can call some plays. I need to see if this looks any better without me doing it. Like he has enough. He had, what do you want to say? His ego wasn't big enough that he wasn't willing to do that.
Right.
He was willing to do that. That's great. Is he willing to fire coaches? Because that's obviously the next step, in my opinion.
I think so. I think
and I do. You looked it up, right? Didn't he fire some mid-season?
Yeah.
Or I don't know if they were mid-season, but he fired coaches at South Florida.
Yep.
and he took over the offense, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so he's willing to make changes, which is good. The problem, again, there's always the coin's always two-sided. Well, it's great that he's willing to do that. Well, what was the problem with the first 8 weeks? Did he think the Syracuse game plan, he called the right plays? You know what I mean? Like, why not do it then? And also, it's great that he's probably willing to fire coaches even after a year. Quite frankly, some of it should be even after 5 or 6 games. But then you wonder, okay, well then what decision-making led you to hire that coach in the first place, who obviously isn't ready? And or the whatever it is, the message isn't getting through. And, again, I just go back to, they're not good enough to be this sloppy, and they are incredibly sloppy. They are the second to most penalized team in the country. I think they're 128th or 129th, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, and so again, he didn't take. In 2016, Florida State was, I think, 125th in penalties. So it's not like he took over a team that was. It's not like he took over an Army.
Well, they still pulled over, but they were able to win 10 games despite the fact.
Correct. Yeah, correct. Now, again, part of that was Dalvin. Part of that you could say, okay, well, they had a better coach. I mean, you know how I feel about Jimbo, but certainly he's more proven right now than Willie Taggart. I think they had, they obviously had DeMarcus Walker. They had some guys that Willie Taggart doesn't have the luxury of having, including a healthy DeAndre Francois. But, you won 10 games, and this team, you just can't. What's concerning when you move forward, like, look, I think he's going to restock the roster, and I think he's going to get dudes that can play, like really play. And I think maybe in 2 years they will have one of the most talented rosters in the country.
Hunting dogs,
but if you're committing
right?
14 penalties a game, that you're tying one hand behind your back. And right now, you don't have the other. You're basically tying both hands behind your back because you're not good enough to offset this. In the 90s, Florida State was always penalized the most in the ACC. It didn't matter. Well, man, you got to coach these guys up. One way or the other, you got to coach these guys up. And the thing that really bothered me on Saturday, and I promise, folks, I'm not a negative person. I had a good weekend.
You did.
You had to drive a long way to watch that nonsense, but I'm not blaming anyone. This is the life I chose. So nobody feels sorry for me, and I'm not looking for it, but I promise I'm in a good mood, even though my voice doesn't sound like it. Are they ever going to teach defensive backs to cover? Is that part of the routine? Like, is Harlan Barnett going to do that? Because I was thinking they don't have a DBs coach, right? Didn't we say that Harlan Barnett coaches the DBs?
It's all his.
So they're spending whatever they're spending on that special teams coach, which again is just an utter failure. Again, we all realize, right? The first kickoff they received in this game, they started at their own 3 on a kickoff. After last week starting their first drive of the game at their own 7. So against Notre Dame, they will probably somehow return it for a safety. They just keep going. They can't go any further backwards. So the special teams is just what it is. But you can't use that coach, that time, to teach a DB how to turn around and look for the ball. How many times? Is it 12 or 15 a game where teams just throw it up and a Florida State cornerback is always trailing? Always. Even Dabo's kid had a step on A.J. Litton before he ripped it out of his hands. By the way, shout out to Dabo's kid for scoring a touchdown and one of the 11 guys to score touchdowns against Louisville.
That's right, everybody. 11 touchdowns.
I mean, that's crazy. So Florida State fans should feel pretty good about that. Like they held that Clemson offense to under 60.
Yeah.
So you think about all the plays in this season, especially lately. Every time a quarterback throws it up, a quarterback is chasing the ball, is at least a step behind a receiver. Why? Are they slow? Are they just letting dudes run right by them? What is so wrong in their technique that they're always 2 steps behind? They never turn around and look for the ball because the rule is you don't turn around and look for the ball until you're even with the receiver. Otherwise, you wait for him to put his hands up and you try to rip the ball out. That's how they're taught. That's how Mickey Andrews taught his guys. Well, Mickey Andrews' guys were always running ahead of the receivers because they were really good and really fast. These guys are always a step or 2 behind. In this secondary, after being so good for so long, Not good. I was going to say something worse than that. I don't want to. They're just not good.
Strong
They're
take,
not
Corey.
good.
Strong take. Not good. They're not good.
I know some people are thinking, I know we are probably going to get a question this week from the Renegade Express. Hey, Corey, is the Florida State secondary good? So I went ahead and took that out of the equation. Folks, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, the Florida State secondary is not good. Yep.
It's like Montel, the results say, or Maury.
Yeah, Maury. Spoiler alert. The secondary is not good.
The results are back.
But I think there's talent there, right? Don't we think Asante Samuel can play, and Stanford Samuels can play, and A.J. Litton can play, and Levante Taylor could play? But this year, they're always out of position. They're always trailing receivers, and it's not a coincidence that all teams do is just throw fades down the sideline or into the end zone because they know that the Florida State corners are going to have their back turned and praying that you somehow miss the ball. And with that, I took a big old swig of my Diet Coke. Hope you got that on
There
the
was
mic.
a really weird commercial that I was kind of got drawn into while you were talking there. I didn't want to get to the defense yet. I wanted to focus on offense.
Sorry, my
it's
fault.
Okay. It's all right. We're going.
The running game is still awful, and I don't know what's up with Cam Akers. But
all right, we'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a great one.
Peace and love.
I don't know. I thought the secondary was going to be the strength of this team, and they are. I don't think this is hyperbole. I think they're the weakest segment on the entire team right now. I think the offensive line is nowhere near. I mean, that's a tough sort of sell.
I was going to say, man, I don't even think you believe that.
I think they're
still the third worst, which I think makes them like the third best, right?
Yeah, touche, I guess, right? Well, yeah, because the linebackers, I finally got a good dose. Remember last week I'm talking about it's so hard to really see, why is a linebacker bad? For some reason, there was a lot of that Saturday. Just they were able to run the ball. And that's the thing. This defense no longer has anything to hang their hat on. Clemson couldn't really run it on them, but NC State just ran it at him. And NC State did not have a very prolific running attack coming into that game. NC State just ran at him. NC State threw it all over them. They're not getting to the quarterback. And for some reason now everyone's trying to pick on Brian Burns. Like Brian Burns doesn't have some sort of Nagurski award-defining play. Like he hasn't just knocked somebody on their rear end and strip sacked and picked it up and ran it back 56 yards for a touchdown. So now Brian Burns is no longer liked by a lot of people. It's just so much.
Really? Has that happened?
That's happening on the message boards right now. He hasn't made an impact play. He's overrated. He's been stuck on 9 sacks for a month now or something like that.
Imagine being stuck on 9 sacks.
I know, right? Yeah, what a
look at the rest of that defensive line. They're stuck on nothing.
Yeah.
Besides my man Marvin, my man Marvin's clutch.
Who's still not playing? Let me go to the numbers on this. I was on the offensive summary because I wanted to talk about offense, but I'll go to the defensive summary. Florida State defended 81 plays. How many plays do you think Marvin played? Like over under 53?
Oh, I just looked it up, so I already saw it.
He played
it's like 46 or something, right?
48. He played 48 out of a possible 81 snaps. He was the highest, he's second highest graded out. I was going to say second highest non-starter, but Saquandre Wright, everybody, was literally the highest graded out player in the entire game. He only played 17 reps, but Marvin played 48. I just don't know. Is he? Is he a run stuffer specialist that they thought they couldn't get to the quarterback with him out there? I mean, nobody could get to the quarterback. That's a bizarre thing. What I was going to say, and you've already kind of shot it down, so I don't know where this is going to go. Is it at least some silver lining or some light at the end of the tunnel that at least the cornerbacks and DBs are in the same zip code as these receivers? They're not running just loose like they were against Louisville. Like they know their assignment, and they're somewhat in position to make a play, though, Corey, I feel like. If they turned around, they could maybe knock it down. If they got one more step, they could maybe pick it off. I just don't know if it's a technique thing or are they just athletically not gifted enough to keep up with these guys. You'd think it's the former because surely these guys are good enough to run with the receivers from NC State, but they just somehow keep finding themselves with their back to the line of scrimmage with a ball sailing over their head in every crucial play. And
all the time.
And teams aren't running slants on this team. They're not running like smash routes. They're just running fades on this team. And it's open. Even when it's not open, it's open. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating to see this defense give up big plays like that. And even when they're in position, then they get a flag.
And one thing that needs to be, again, it can all be qualified and quantified. They have played 2 NFL quarterbacks the last 2 weeks. I think Finley's a good player. And he made some really nice throws in that game. And I think what happened in that game was they kind of outthought themselves in the sense that, all right, we know we can't get to him. He gets rid of the ball too quick. His O-line is pretty darn good, and he's been sacked 3 times all year, whatever it's been. We're not going to get to him, so we're not going to even bother with a huge rush. We're not going to blitz him. They rarely blitzed at all in that game, if at all. I just don't remember it at all. And there were times, legitimately, when Brian Burns would take one step towards him and then back up, like he was trying to bat down a pass or play a zone blitz type thing. Mm-hmm. And I think they kind of outthought themselves a little bit, and they gave him too much time without even really trying to rush after him. Lots of times they didn't put any I don't remember him being hit, but a couple of times he just wasn't.
He wasn't hit.
So, but he's a good quarterback. But he's not. He's not Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
Trevor Lawrence isn't Aaron Rodgers yet, and yet they just have these. You watch every week, and it's not just those 2 guys that have done it. It's been not very good quarterbacks or not great quarterbacks that have hit them with some big plays, and I don't know what it is. I don't know why. I mean, I just think about Florida State's offense. How many times did they throw fades? It just doesn't happen a lot. Yeah. They throw it to 15. They start throwing to him, but they don't. You don't see them just throwing shots downfield all the time, and yet every time Florida State plays a team, they see the man-to-man coverage, and they just exploit it. And I know Harlan Barnett has a way. He has a scheme, and he's trying to teach it. But you would like to see, and again, I think Harlan Barnett's a good coach. He's proven it. Just like, quite frankly, Willie's proven it as an offensive coordinator, and getting rushing attacks going. But, why is Florida State's rushing offense second to dead last in the country? And why is this secondary getting torched? Why can't there be any adjustments made? Is it just we're not doing it this season? It's just going to be next season with different players. We can't do it with these players because that's really confusing. Why they're so bad at both, but the secondary is just not good, folks.
Another one.
Again, I think I need to reiterate it. Not good.
Not good. Well, at least
Florida, but still better than the linebackers.
Yeah, that'll be for another day. All right, let's pivot to this then. Let's go back to Willie, his management style. Again, you said there's 2 sides to the coin. I guess people can say, why did you wait this long to make the changes? I don't really want to go down that avenue. I think it's the fact that, after. No,
I didn't mean it like that. I meant more about if he fires coaches at the end of the season.
Okay.
The other side of that coin, although we'll be glad that he did, that he's willing to take action if it doesn't work. The other side of the coin is, well, you obviously made a mistake in hiring him in the first place.
If Alonzo Hampton wasn't good enough to be an on-the-field assistant at Oregon, why is he doing it at Florida State?
Well, right? And if David Kelly wasn't a receivers coach and didn't want to be a receivers coach, why is he a receivers coach at Florida State? It's the same stuff. And I have to be fair. If I'm going to criticize Jimbo for employing people that can't be employed anywhere else in 2018, he certainly in those roles, I have to use that same critique of Willie Taggart. Nobody was knocking down David Kelly's door to be a receivers coach. Certainly nobody was knocking down Alonzo Hampton's door to be an assistant college football coach. And yet you're trying to tell us that those guys are the best people for the jobs in the country. And it just doesn't seem like that's necessarily the case. And I certainly think David Kelly is can be a big part of this program moving forward. I just don't know in what capacity. But we've seen way too many times this year. Not the receivers were a problem this game. But he's got Randy Moss to coach. That helps. But just moving forward, I think he's a very good recruiter, and he's somebody that can really help this program. But you look at those hires that Willie Taggart made, and I think what you can do to give him a little bit of benefit of the doubt is he was under a real time crunch. Uh-huh. He was hired in December. I think a first couple of his options turned him down, and in certain roles. So he had to get somebody on staff just to tell those 4 receivers that he brought in who their position coach was going to be. He couldn't just say, I'll figure it out later. I mean, he had to. He was in a time crunch, so we give him a benefit of the doubt. But now that he's had a whole 11 or 12 months, let's see what he does this offseason and if any changes are made.
I think so. I saw a couple people make some sort of comment about like the Tallahassee media has to be the biggest bunch of betas out there, and then somebody posted, did the journalists with quotation marks around it ask any questions, or do they put their tail between their legs again? As if we're going to ask, like, Willie, so are you going to fire Alonzo Hampton when you get back to Tallahassee or right now on the bus? Like, he can't fire Alonzo Hampton right now. I don't want to sit here and speculate about a guy's job. It's hard to imagine that this – I'm of the belief now that it's hard to imagine that this team finishes on a 5-game losing streak or only wins 1 out of their last 5 or 2 out of their last 7 or however it'll be mathematically massaged, that you just come back with everybody the same. And it's just natural, and especially with the way that he looked at you. Good grief, Corey. Way to stay in the pocket. When you asked him about how frustrating...
I almost ran out of the room.
He stared through you. He did not want any part of it. I mean, Corey asked him, everybody, basically, how frustrating is it week 10, you're still having to call timeouts before you punt. And he said frustrating, 4 times? Like very.
He said very, 4 times.
Very, very.
And then just stared knives into my soul.
Yeah, Corey's on rehabbing right now.
Well, here's the thing with that
guy's
man.
Probably not coming back. But right now, what do you do? I mean, I still think they have to be trying to salvage something from this season. And whatever, if it makes 10% of this fan base feel good that he's going to fire a coach in the middle of the season, sorry, 10%, because what are you going to do? You get rid of him, and then what? You're going to start handing it off to people with 3 weeks left? All right, so David, you work on kick return. Dante, you work on punt return. I mean, at this point, you can't. I don't think there's anything to gain by getting rid of a coach.
Well, no, because you can't. Who are you going to replace him with? Yeah. You don't have any viable options in early November to replace your special teams coach. But next year, and I'm not. And again, I'm not advocating for someone's dismissal. I'm just saying it makes sense in the offseason to do it where you can handpick who you want, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to get a GA to coach them this week or whoever. Yeah. But again, going back to, fans are always like this. We got it last year with Jimbo. Like, you can only ask what you can ask, and they're only going to answer what they can answer. I mean, I think people want us to say, hey, Jimbo, did you realize your offense sucks? Or, yeah, he does. And he comes up, we ask him why and what can be done. He answers them, and that's that. Willie Taggart gets asked every week about special teams, and he gets asked every week about the running game, and he gets asked every week about the penalties. What else can we do? And so when I asked him, and if you want to know, when you want to know what Willie Taggart thinks about his special teams, watch that 4-second clip of me asking the question about the punt. That tells you all you need to know. He ain't mad at me for asking the question. He's mad that he's having to answer a question about a timeout before a punt in a game that at the time was still in doubt, and you never know if you're going to need timeouts late in the game, and he's burning one to punt. Now, on the same token, at that point, and I told you this during the game, take a delay a game, man.
Yep.
Just tell Logan Tyler not to punt. The timeout is much more valuable than those 5 yards, especially when you're punting anyway. So that stuff, as you'd hope when he moves forward, again, he's been coaching a long time, that maybe you can, if I'm thinking of that, then somebody down there should be thinking of that. No, don't call a timeout. Just let the clock run out. Well, we're going to need that timeout later. You'd like people somewhere in the staff. I know that it's hectic on a sideline. So someone in the box somewhere can think more clear-mindedly about what should be done game time situation. That's stuff that you hope improves, because they've done a lot of bizarre stuff. But trust me, man, Willie's not it's not a fun, those aren't fun press conferences to be in. And he's not just sitting there getting asked about how awesome James Blackman is. Just like Jimbo wasn't sitting there getting asked how great Derwin James was. It can be a lot of tense moments for a coach answering those questions. They're not, and how could they be? How could you, after 106 points in 2 weeks, you not ask things that are negative? That's all it is. And his answers are his answers. But sometimes fans, it feels like fans want us to fight them.
Yeah, on their behalf.
Yeah, because that's what, again, he's going to answer it how he's going to answer it. So that, Jimbo is just about the inches. And we just got to make more plays. We got to execute. Willie's at least a little more forthcoming. I'm not saying that's the right way or the wrong way. For us, it's better. But as far as the way to run a program, who knows? But, the coaches are going to answer how they want to answer. You telling them that their offense sucks and their rushing game's terrible, well, yeah, they know it. And we ask them about it each week. He can't fix it this year. That's become obvious.
So I wanted to say he's been something different every loss. Like the Virginia Tech game, he was absolutely devastated. He was absolutely devastated.
It was like stunned. He was shocked.
Absolutely devastated. I'm talking at least in the games that I don't know how he was at Syracuse, but then like after Miami, he was hurt. Like that hurt him. Like that game hurt because they had it. The Clemson game, I don't even know. I mean, the Clemson game was just, man, this is just not going. This is not going to get better anytime soon. NC State, there was a sense of frustration, I think, where maybe with him not having, maybe there's some sort of clarity now with him a little bit. I remember talking to Ira on the way home. Like if I was like, if you were a head coach, Ira, would you want to call plays on it? He's like, no, I wouldn't. He's like, I'd want to be able to look at the big picture. I'm like, well, then what are you getting paid for if you're not a head coach? If you're not going to call plays directly, then what are you getting paid for? And we had a good argument about you do need to be able to look back during a game and notice that, hey, Tavares McFadden's not doing a really good job returning punts.
Yeah.
You need to be able to look at certain guys on the defense and see that they're not getting it done and implore your staff to figure out ways to fix things. So I think maybe he got a different appreciation for the problems they're having and realizes it. And hopefully he'll go about a plan of attack here to fix in the offseason because, again, right now I don't think he can do much. But I think there was a different vibe to him after kind of sitting back and watching that game as a delegator this time around. It was a bitter pill to swallow because that defense looks really bad again, like we said, and that special teams continues to do things that just wow you. Last thing I want to talk about, Willie, and we'll talk about the offense real quick and get done. A week after saying that his team quit in a very sort of vague I mean, he's not vague. He came out right and said it, but it was just it was a dubious thing to say after losing a game in that sort of way. I think even Ed Orgeron said to a certain degree that his team quit. Just he saw his team give in at some point in the Alabama game, which is natural. When you see the writings on the wall, no one's going to keep going 110%. It's just not. It's just not. And I'm sorry.
Right.
Maybe I'm advocating on behalf of a loser's mentality. Listen, I played sports. I never gave up, but I knew when we weren't going to win. I went out there and I would play shifts in hockey, and I'd still bust my ass, but I knew we weren't going to win. And I think there's probably a certain part of you that when you know that, you're maybe not going to go 110%. But a week after he says the team quits, now he comes back and says he loves his team. Like they're doing everything they want. They're trying. We as coaches need to do a better job of coaching it up. Like how is that going to play out? Like 1 week he's calling you a quitter, the next week he loves you, and I just wonder. And I'm not trying to say he's going to lose the locker room. However, there's only so many times you can implore players or question them, do the whole good cop bad cop, and it's the same guy that's trying to be the good cop bad cop. I really wonder if it's just he knows he's this is obviously the team he has. And he can only coach them so hard, and how much of it just trying to appeal to some sort of emotional aspect that can maybe turn a corner for them. But I feel like that's pretty.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just trying to grasp at straws, push buttons, the right buttons. Obviously calling them quitters didn't help. And I'm not saying he was wrong or it was the right or wrong thing to do, but we watched him the next week and it didn't matter at all.
I don't think it was right. I'll go ahead and say it.
Either way, whether he was doing it as a motivational ploy or not, it didn't work. So now he's trying a different tact. And when they lose to Notre Dame, maybe he'll come up with a different tact. I don't know. He just doesn't.
There's no identity. I don't know
if there were any answers. I don't know if Bill Belichick would be coaching this team, how much better it would be. I don't know where the answers are, but I know with this particular roster, this specific 2018 roster, Willie Taggart and his staff don't have the answers. They've made that abundantly clear the last 2 weeks. Again, that does not mean that they don't have the answers for life. It doesn't mean that they don't have the answers for 2019 or 2020. But for this team, they're not, whatever buttons are there to be pushed, they're not being pushed. And it's, they're on their way to not almost certainly, maybe missing a bowl. They're certainly on their way to their 6th loss here coming up soon for 2 straight years. And I think the one thing that Willie's been talking about really since the preseason that he mentioned again after the game against NC State is teaching them how to win again. And I do think there's something to that. I think what's happened with this program, and it just happens. You get used to losing. It becomes, when you become accustomed to losing and it doesn't bother you that much, that's when there's the real problem. And I think it was apparent last year with this group of players, losing doesn't bother them. And that's what Willie's trying to somehow turn around. And nobody could argue that he's doing a good job of it right now. Again, it's the same conversation. It's funny. I saw some people on the message boards waiting for me to write this scathing column about what we had witnessed.
Yeah.
And obviously I wrote kind of a nice piece about James Blackman, this looks like they might have a quarterback here, at least try him out and see how he does the next month. And I was thinking, you can't go scorched earth every week, because we've seen it now. There's a blowout loss to Syracuse. There's a blowout loss to Clemson. There's a blowout loss to NC State. We're setting records. So getting madder and madder, and it defies logic. At some point, you get used to it. I'm used to it. If I'm used to covering a losing team, which I am now, you guys that are listening to this are used to listening to us talk about a losing team. Well, those guys in the locker room are used to losing too. So that's somehow got to flip, and it's not got to be accepted. And I think it's accepted a little too easy with these guys. I also think they're not all that good. So again, it's always going to be, every time I say something about Willie Taggart, understand it comes from a place of, I understand what he was left. I just do. I watched it. I watched it kind of melt down. So I know what was left. At the same time, that doesn't excuse 106 points. It doesn't excuse 31 penalties. And that's the balance that we have to find is, okay, it's one thing to say that Jimbo left him a mess, and he did. Well, man, at some point you got to get some paper towels and start trying to wipe it up somehow. Or are you just going to keep throwing mud on it? Man, what a great, when you talk about all-time analogies.
That was really good, Corey. I like that.
That's almost as good as it gets, I think, folks. And that, again, that's off the dome. But I don't have anything written down. I know you guys are shocked by that with how wonderful my arguments are and how well-spoken I am and articulate, but it's not written down, folks. This is all off the dome. Well, I just came up with he's got to clean up a mess, get some paper towels.
Well, the problem is we're insinuating that he isn't trying anything, but he is.
No, I'm saying he instead of picking, I made a mistake. He, instead of picking up paper towels, he might think he's picking up paper towels, but apparently he's picking up a big old pile of poo and throwing it on things and mistaking it for bounty. I know he's trying.
You mentioned
maybe it'll work.
You mentioned it's
right
fire.
Now, all it does is just poo.
You mentioned he inherited somewhere that was on fire. Is he doing anything to put it out, or is he throwing gasoline on it?
Another great analogy, I thought.
I don't think he's throwing gasoline on it, but it's
still raging.
And he's tried. I don't know how many more things he can try this year. And at what point do you exhaust all your options this year that you're going to? It's going to be easy for them to tune you out next year if they don't stop getting used to losing. It's something a little bit daunting to think about. I mean, Oregon was 4-8. He got them to 7 wins, or at least 6 wins on it. Well, no, they were 7-6, right? They lost the bowl game after he left.
Yeah.
Oh, they were 7-5 rather, and then they lost the bowl game. He flipped them. I mean, just at this point, we're not even close to getting. We're not even going to get 6 wins. We're not even going to get to a bowl.
Well, here's the thing that I think Florida State fans are genuinely, again, concerned with. You can look at Texas A&M. They're having essentially the same season they had last year. And they blew a game against Auburn late. Come on, Jimbo. You know how to beat Auburn.
Yeah, Jimbo.
What happened there in the last minute? But they're not losing historically bad. And I think, so it's how you look at things. Obviously, Miami's a train wreck. Florida just got really kind of beaten up and beaten badly by Missouri at home. And God. Florida State obviously looks like Florida State. So you can look at all three of these programs, or if you want to include Texas A&M or even Nebraska, I don't know. You can look at all these programs with new head coaches and think and just, okay, are we just going to concentrate on the record? Because look, Jimbo's 5-4, Willie Taggart's 4-5. Mark Richt's lost 4 games, right? And they're really close, I think, and he's really close to have lost the one to Florida State. He should have lost that game. So are we looking at how it looks? Because that's kind of what I'm focused on. It's not so much,
absolutely.
Okay, he's 4-5. Well, last year's team at this time was 3-6. So hey, man, he's made a 1-game improvement. So it's not so much the record; it's just 106 points in an offense that's the worst rushing offense in Florida State history. Those are the things that worry you. It's like it's okay. It's not okay, but we all understood it was going to be a bit of a rebuild, or at least we did very early in this season. That doesn't excuse it being this bad. I guess that's where Florida State fans get worried, is like, if there were signs that you were making strides, like if you had lost close to Clemson, like Jimbo did,
or like Scott Frost just did against Ohio State,
or Dan Mullen beating LSU. If you'd had one of those moments, and maybe there'd be more to build on, and maybe that's coming this weekend. Who knows, man? Stranger things have happened, right, Aslan, than Florida State going on the road and knocking off the Fighting Irish.
Yeah, let me hype up the people real quick here. Remember your thought. Commit it to memory, Corey. It's going to be real quick, though. A member of warchant.com, MJS Knoll, is, according to him, he's 27-0 as a Florida State fan on road trips outside the state of Florida. All right?
What?
Yeah, he said he's been to 27 neutral site or away games outside the state of Florida. Florida State's a perfect 27-0. He's going to be in South Bend, Indiana on Saturday.
That's all I need to hear.
Okay?
Give me Florida State and the 18 points.
Stops right now. Right here, right now, this week. Yeah, I'm sorry it's been such a downer of a show. Last thing I want to talk about, Corey, or do you remember your thought, follow through with your thought, or did I totally derail you?
Just that, so that's where the difference is, I think, when you're looking at programs being rebuilt, is that the records are one thing. And, I know we got tired of hearing it, but there's a lot of truth in the Saban Jimbo philosophy of results and process. The results are one thing. The process is the other. And right now, we can understand the results not being great because they weren't great last year. But what we're seeing doesn't lead us to believe, because we're looking at the process and how things seem, 106-33 or 38 is ridiculous. It's just crazy. It's just crazy that we're sitting here talking about a team that just gave up 106 points in back-to-back weeks at Florida State.
Yeah,
so
not the Big 12.
That's what's concerning, is that, okay, what are you doing to fix this? Because it looks like it's just getting worse than it was last year. And what's going to be different next year when you lose your best defensive, you lose the only guy that can rush the passer. So that's where I think there's not a lot to really hold your hat on, to get excited about moving forward right now if you're a Florida State fan, when you just look at what you've seen the last 2 weeks. It looks like you've got a decade to go to get better.
Nah, it's got to give him 3 years. Let him get his guys in. 3 years.
Well, that's the reality. You have to, but that's all he's going to get. The things happen, man. You can lose games and lose big, and then a couple years later be good, but he doesn't have that benefit of the doubt with the Florida State fan base. Even though he's done that at other places, this is the wrong place to come and get historically beaten. That's not a good look around here, man. It doesn't mean his job's on the line, because of course it's not, but it means he's got a lot of, you've got 3 games left. Show some sort of life, or is this team just going to fall off the cliff? Because it looks like it's already fallen off the cliff, like Wile E. Coyote. So you wonder what's left for them to play for. Are they going to rally up and play well, or is this just a completely washed season? Because right now, what's been a pleasant experience for you watching Florida State football in 2018? Tamorrion Terry?
Yep. Door shut. That's it.
Yeah, maybe Marvin Burns. I mean, 3 or 4 players out of 80. So anyway, I don't know. I think the freshman, he's got some young talented receivers, and the offensive line isn't any good. It's got to get better. but there's just, I don't know. There's just really never an excuse for 106 points in 2 weeks. There's not an excuse for it. It's preposterous. And it's not something that needs to be accepted, and it's not something that can be explained away. It's just something that needs to be fixed. There, I'm done.
Do you start James Blackman against Notre Dame?
Of course, yeah. I start him the rest of the way.
Do you let Walt Bell
he made a
call
couple plays in that game that Francois would have had no prayer of making. Yeah. Not because Francois can't throw. Francois can't move.
Yeah.
Blackman can move a little bit. He moved himself into a couple of plays, and he also throws it up to 15.
Would you let Walt Bell continue to call plays?
Yes. I mean, you saw what happened, man. You see the improvement from 1 week to the next? They got beat by 4. Let me just do the quick math for you, Aslan.
Okay.
They got beat by 49 points by Clemson.
Right.
By NC State, they only got beat by 19.
Wow.
So that means they're going to beat Notre Dame by 11.
Okay. I follow.
And then Boston College by 41.
Ooh.
And then they're going to beat Florida 72-0. Oh. And if all that happens, then baby, we are back on the Taggart train. You could give Alonzo Hampton a raise for all I care.
Sorry it was a downer of a show. It's my fault. I'm just kind of.
I mean, come on, man. Where are we gonna? It's got to be a downer of a show, unless we're gonna start talking about Alabama.
Well, it was disconnected. I should say it was disjointed. I'm just the drive, the late mornings or the late night, early mornings, dude. I got my flight out of Notre Dame on Sunday. Corey is at 8 a.m. I'm not. I'm not getting back to Chicago till 3 a.m. probably. Is that game at 7 or 8 o'clock?
It's 7:30, buddy. Right in the middle.
Geez.
So you'll leave South Bend at probably 1. You'll get into Chicago at 2:30.
Oh, because I'm going to gain an hour because it's Eastern to Central time.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about how all that works. I just know you're an hour away from Chicago, and you'll leave at 1 in the morning.
2. I thought it's 2 hours between South Bend and Chicago.
No, I thought it was just an hour. Either way, you got to drive ahead of you, so you might as well just drive straight to the airport.
And then I'm flying into Orlando, so then I got to drive 3.5 hours back to Tallahassee.
All to watch this football team.
It's because I love you guys, everybody. Although you're posting all your negativity, we got to do a downer show, and then everybody goes on YouTube. It just eviscerates me, but whatever. I'll be strong. I'll be fine. We'll pick it up again tomorrow. We'll talk to Willie later on Monday, and we'll ask him some questions. We'll get some answers. We'll see what happens. And then, yes, part 1 of Aslan Goes to South Bend, revisited 2003. I think I'll break it up again. I think that'll be the journey up, and maybe the night before the game when all the ruckusness happened.
So how is this going to work? Are you just going to record yourself talking, or am I going to ask you questions?
I'm going to tell a story, and you're going to interrupt me every so often and be like, wait, or why did you do this?
Right.
Why don't you do that? I'm not going to sit here and just talk to the mic by myself and then patch it into the show. Come on, man.
Can we do a teaser? Can I ask you one question?
Certainly.
Does any of it involve a body fluid?
Yes.
Sweet.
There we go.
Tune in tomorrow, folks. Wake up!
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WarChant30. That's WarChant30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WarChant30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.